Hello and welcome to the Regional Debate Development Program in New Zealand. We're here to help you guys become better debaters through a number of videos in this series. But I'm sure that you already know all that, so I'm going to jump right into the lecture. But not before I give you my favorite piece of advice, which you've heard before. And you're probably getting annoyed that I have to tell you this. You probably are skipping over this bit of content. But what it is to please take notes, because when you take notes, it's super useful, because it means that you're able to remember this stuff, you're able to use it when you go to practice it later on, and that is really important when it comes to debating, because the best thing you can do is to practice it. The next best thing you can do is to take notes so that you can remember what you're going to do when you're practicing it. But it's already great that you're listening to this video in the first place, so it's not the end of the world if you can't find a piece of paper and a pen. Can I get the next slide? What I'm going to cover today is actor analysis. So I'm going to chat through what is it, when will you use it, and why do you need to know about it. So what is it? Actor analysis is what I think is the next stage to building better substantive arguments. So I've told you how to use mechanisms and why in an earlier lecture, but this is the next step. This is like what takes good debaters who are giving good substantives into great debaters who are giving great substantives. So actor analysis is characterizing an actor or group. I think most commonly we're talking about groups, but you can do individuals as well. But generally we're talking about things like governments or charitable organizations, or we could be talking about criminal groups or terrorist organizations. All of these are actors that'll act in certain ways, and how they act really matters to who wins the debate. When we use it, you will use it all the time in debating. You'll use it in lots of the different substantive speeches you have throughout time. You'll also use it in rebuttal. But hold that thought, because I'm going to talk about that at the end of the lecture. So put it out of your mind for now. Why do you need to know about it? Good substantives are core to winning debating. And I think actor analysis is core to building better substantives. So I think this is the next stage. Is probably one of the next more advanced skills that I'm teaching in this video series that'll help you become significantly better as a debater and compete against some of New Zealand's better debaters. Great, next slide. 4 steps to actor analysis. I'm going to talk through these, but before I talk through them, I'm going to give you a heads up. Honestly, I'm just going to go through these different ones and I'm going to flick through them reasonably quickly. And I'm just going to give you their titles. But then I'm going to go to the next slide. I'm going to do it with an example, because I found in my experience in coaching lots of different debaters about this, that often trying to explain it out without an example is really difficult to do, but it's really easy for people to understand with a lecture. So don't worry if you don't get it quite yet, the example will help you. So first you need to identify what is your actor. That's nice and easy. This could be the New Zealand government. This could be, terrorist groups in the Middle East. This could be anything. But you need to select an actor. Now, this could be the New Zealand government. This could be anything. Now you need to break that actor down into components, right? You need to be like, let's take the government example. Like you break it down and you'd be like, well, what has impact on how New Zealand operates? Well, probably the New Zealand government, probably what the New Zealand people think, probably, what important religious groups think that have massive sway in New Zealand, et cetera, et cetera. There's probably more better examples you could give than this, like the one I'm going to give you on my next slide. Then you need to explain what each of these groups want. And once you do that, that'll explain how the overall actor entity will want it. And you need to explain why it is that they want those things. So you're probably a little confused, so let's jump to the example. The example is corporations. I think corporations come up a lot in debating. We talk about them in all sorts of debates, from patent debates to environmental debates to regulation debates. And it's something I use a lot, and it's helped me win a lot of debates. So I'm going to teach you this one, so that at least if you leave with nothing from this lecture, you'll at least know how to do this, and it'll help you win debates. So often people stand up in debates and say, corporations are bad and corporations are evil. What I'm going to do is I'm going to chat you through how you can prove that they're evil, and I'm going to chat you through how they can prove that corporations are actually the great, good people that'll do good things. So let's chat through that. I'm going to track you through, firstly, why they're going to do good, because I think that's the less intuitive one, and then I'll more briefly touch on how you can prove the other one. So, corporations, that's our first step. What is our actor? It is a corporation. This could be pharmaceutical corporation, or this could be, supermarket corporations, this could be corporations in general, this could be anything. So, we've identified our actor. What's the next step? That next step is breaking it down into parts. Well, who makes up these corporations? This is kind of broad. You can be a little bit more specific. So for a pharmaceutical corporation, you might be talking about the scientists, for example. But I've been very broad here. I've been like, we've got the employees, you've got the executives, and you've got the shareholders. All of these people have some control of the company. Different pieces. For example, the employees have control over the day-to-day stuff. The executives control kind of the broad brand vision, and the shareholders have the ability to kind of cancel out big decisions by trading the stock up and down. That's a good way to explain them to the judge if you want to use that analysis. Now, why is it that employees want to do good for the company? Well, the truth is you can make money doing lots of things. You can work and be an accountant and make money. You can be a lawyer and make money. You can work for the British Tobacco Company and make money, right? Like, you can work for all sorts of different companies and make money. So why is it that you chose this one? Let's say it's a pharmaceutical company, for example. You probably have some sort of dream or interest in the area that's drawn you to it. And normally that's not just money because you could have made money elsewhere. So because of that, let's say you're in the medicine field, you probably care about helping people, or if you're in, a food industry, you probably care about seeing people fed and having a good experience in your supermarket. That's why employees want to do good. So yes, they care about their paycheck, but they also care about these other things. So on the whole, when they get the opportunity to do good, they're going to want to do it because that's why they got the job in the first place. So you're like, employees are doing good, but I don't really believe executives and shareholders are going to do that. So why are executives doing good? Well, they've actually got a reputation to maintain. Executives tend not to stay at just one company their whole life. They tend to move around between different companies, and they have a reputation to maintain. And if they've been shown to be kind of quite an evil, despicable person the public hates, then generally companies won't hire them. Because what happens is that you get public backlash and you get protests outside your offices when you hire this new person. And companies don't want to do that. It's much easier because there's lots of very good execs out there that have profitable track records. So you probably just pick the one that doesn't have that. So they're like, well, for my future career, I care about this a lot. Then let's look at shareholders. Well, they care about profit, and they probably care about principles as well. You can flip these both ways. That's why I've written them, why I'm using them both, not just the top. So in terms of a profit incentive, there's often a profit incentive to be good, right? Like, often doing really bad things is illegal. Like, using child labor will generally get you fined. Using things that pollute the rivers will generally get you fined in most countries, especially in the first world. I think it's less applicable in the third world, but you want to avoid those fines, so you're not going to do the thing because it's against your own profit incentives, right? Especially if it's really bad. And brand damage will also harm you because your customers don't want to shop with you. So all of these things matter in regards to helping you get profit incentive. Also, another thing you can say is like, look, there's a lot more principal investors out there now. And you can be like, hey, look, Judge, here's the truth. There's lots of funds nowadays that invest in green energy companies, ethical ventures, ones that have diverse exec teams. Like, all of these things indicate that shareholders care about more than just their profitability. So because of that, you can say that there are principal investors, and to get that extra investment which companies want, they need to be good. On the flip side of this, I'm going to not run through them all in such depth, but employees, they care about job security. So they'll just follow what the company says so they can get a paycheck. So that's why they'll do bad. Executives, they care about their bonus. If they can jack up the numbers by secretly polluting a river, their bonus is tied to company profitability. So they make more money by like doing something illegal, they're going to do that. And then finally, shareholders care about profitability. And as long as they don't hear about it in the public sphere that something's illegal being done, they're probably going to try to turn a blind eye to it because that was their bank account, because that's why they buy shares in the first place. But I think that's more intuitive to explain. Great, next slide. Bonus advice. I promised you that I would tell you how to do this as rebuttal. Because the problem is, previously, not many people in New Zealand were doing this. But hopefully, post this video, lots more people will be doing it. So I want to teach you how to respond when other people give you this analysis. So when people say, often people will stand up, let's go back to our example. Companies are bad. They're evil. Like Pfizer Corporation, the pharmaceutical company, just wants to screw everyone and be as much profit-driven as possible. And you might be like, look, here's my way I go about it. I would use these exact words. I'd be like, look, Judge, this might be more intuitive to you. However, the reality is, this is the next line, the reality is, Judge, that companies are more nuanced than just one monolithic entity. Like, monolithic is just a fancy word for like one singular, immovable entity. Like, they're made up of lots of little pieces. So, Judge, I'm now going to give you all the little pieces and give you a lot more nuance, and that's how we're going to win this case. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Because when someone says something's bad, it's probably, don't get me wrong, there are lots of companies in some industries that are bad. Like probably smoking companies have some bad incentive structures. That's just the reality. However, if they've just said smoking companies are bad because they're evil, that's not actually debate analysis. What you can say is like, hey, that might be more intuitive, but here's why it's not true. And if you can disprove that, if you're doing a regulation debate, it's really hard to win if the company's going to be good anyway, right? However, like I said, that works really well if they've just said it's bad. Problem is, if they've also watched this video just like you and they've become a better debater because of it, they're probably going to give you that full nuanced analysis. You can't just say, we're going to give you more nuance, because they also gave you nuance. So how do you beat them? The key here is to come back to the mechanization, because this is where you're using it. And you need to be like, why? If you can give better analytical reasoning, you're going to win the debate. So if you can explain at more levels with more nuance, you can be like, okay, so why is it that people care more about their values for which they went to the job than they care about the security of their paycheck? You're like, well, they're more able to transfer jobs. Like there's lots of jobs in the economy at the moment. They're more able to, like when you can like have the mental health harms of not being able to sleep at night because you've been immoral, that is really bad, like worse than like the stress of just having to find a new job for a few weeks. All of that analysis will go into it, and being more nuanced is better, and also rebutting what they have to say is better. Okay, great. Practice. How do you get better at this? Firstly, if you're as an individual, you can do this nice and easy. If you're with a group, you can do this nice and easy. So first step, pick an actor. You can use corporations. You could use a specific corporation. You could pick, I don't know, we could use pharmaceutical companies in the US. We could use supermarkets in the UK. You could pick out any group. It could be a more global group than that, just like supermarkets in general. It could be anything you like, but you need to select an actor. Then I want you to go through each of the 4 steps, make sure you're ticking each and every step off that I've talked through in this debate. If you've forgotten, great thing about the video is you can just flip back and go to that slide. But even if you didn't want to flip back and go to that slide, I've included a lovely checklist in the comments below. Just inside the description, I have a link to a Google Doc that you can access the checklist that has all the steps, plus a little bit of bonus advice in there for you if you want to print that out. So I'd sit down now, either as a group or an individual, and work through it, speak through it, and then make sure you're ticking off every step as you go. Because I think if you master this, your debates will become significantly better. Your analytical analysis in mechanization will become better, and you'll have a lot less judges saying to you, look, I didn't think the mechanization was enough to believe you because you've done this. It's going to be really hard to say that. Thank you once again so much for tuning in. It's always lovely to have you. I hope this has been helpful. If you've got any questions, feel free to stick them in the comments, but do remember this is not a professional YouTube channel. I'll try and get back to you at some point, but it may take a little while. All the very best of luck with your next debate. I'm sure it's going to go much better because of this video, and thank you. Best of luck with debating.